What's up, everyone out there on Turtle Island? It's the Mountain Sage channel. Come get your daily dose of sage advice. Welcome to episode 3 of Words of Wisdom. Today we'll be listening to some wise words from Ramana Maharshi. Simple man, sage, call him the silent sage of India. Lived from December 30th, 1879 to April 14th, 1950. I encourage you all to look more into his simple and humble teachings. Without understanding yourself, what is the use of trying to understand the world? That which comes and goes, rises and sets, is born and dies, is the ego. That which always abides, never changes, and is devoid of qualities, is the self. Mind is consciousness which has put on limitations. You are originally unlimited and perfect. Later, you take on limitations and become the mind. You need not aspire for or get any new state. Get rid of your present thoughts. That is all. The degree of freedom from unwanted thoughts and the degree of concentration on a single thought are the measures to gauge spiritual progress. One must realize the self in order to open the store of unalloyed happiness. Even the structure of the atom has been found by the mind. Therefore the mind is subtler than the atom. That which is behind the mind, namely the individual soul, is subtler than the mind. Time is only an idea. There is only the reality. Whatever you think it is, it looks like that. If you call it time, it is time. If you call it existence, it is existence. And so on. After calling it time, you divide it into days and nights, months, years, hours, minutes, etc. Time is immaterial for the path of knowledge. As many of you know, in my quotes section of my About Me, Einstein's quote of reality is only an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. He also said that time does not exist. Time is like slices of now, and we number those slices. Back to Ramana Maharshi. Concentration of the mind is in a way common to both knowledge and yoga. Yoga aims at union of the individual with the universal, the reality. This reality cannot be new. It must exist even now. And it does not exist. And it does exist. If there is anything besides the self, there is reason to fear. Who sees the second? First, the ego arises and sees objects as external to oneself. If the ego does not rise, the self alone exists and there is no second. What he's saying here is, when the inside and the outside are one, the mind puts the barrier of in here and out there, the separation. Jesus, in my first episode, I went over where he speaks about us becoming one with the Father. To be one as even him and the Father are one, to be one with him and one, in them and us. To bring it all together. He's helping us realize, casting away sin, ego, which is the mind of the person, and seeing and experiencing us and God as one and each other. Back to Ramana Maharshi's quotes. All bad qualities center around the ego. When the ego is gone, realization results by itself. There are neither good nor bad qualities in the self. The self is free from all qualities. Qualities pertain to the mind only. Just like God isn't touched by earthly matters, right? You think like the sun, not being affected by, comings and goings upon the earth. People and animals and things, and drama and other forms of nonsense. Silence is also conversation. I am not the perishable body, but the eternal self. The body dies, but the spirit that transcends, it cannot be touched by death. Actions yield results by the ordinance of God, as He wills. All activities and events that a body is to go through are determined at the time of conception. Remember, as the noise of the world comes and goes, remember to remain as I am, as the pure being. It is the higher power which does everything, and the man is only a tool. If he accepts that position, he is free from troubles. Otherwise, he courts them. When there are thoughts, it is distraction. When there are no thoughts, it is meditation. Who am I? Not the body, because it is decaying. Not the mind, because the brain will decay with the body. Not the personality, nor the emotions, for these also will vanish with death. The greatest error of a man, is to think that he is weak by nature, evil by nature. Every man is divine, every woman, every one. Every man is divine and strong in his real nature. What are weak and evil are his habits, his desires and thoughts, but not himself. And to you extremely religious folk out there, I don't think that's much different than what Christ was trying to get us to see, trying to guide us toward, teach us to become. Right? It says to be imitators of God, imitators of Christ. I think it's important that we see that our God transcends languages and cultures, nations, and he speaks to his children around the world, around the globe. And I want to put these wonderful beings, these humble beings, messages in the spotlight, which is why I'm doing these words of wisdom, this series. When suffering comes, another good thing to remember too, that Ramana Maharshi said, suffering turns men towards their Creator. It can be a tool for that. My suffering has turned me toward my Creator. But, like with my cousin and most of my life, he's been my best friend. His suffering, he allowed to stir up anger in his own heart. And he stopped seeing that he was being led for good. And that led him in a downward spiral into drugs and addiction, hard drugs and addiction, shooting up and so on. And I pray for him every day, as I do for my mom and many other people I've seen that have been overtaken by the devil and his marks, his fruits, his drugs, namely man-made drugs that are abused. Drugs, substances made in nature by nature, are also abused sometimes, and I encourage everyone to not abuse them, and to use them for what they're meant for. Use them for healing, for spiritual purpose, for prayer, for meditation, always with the aim to become closer to God. And one last message from Ramana Maharshi, also known as Bhagavan. Time and space always change, but there is something which is eternal and changeless. For example, the world and time, past or future. Nothing exists for us in sleep, but we exist. Let us try to find out that which is changeless and which always exists. Postscript, I'm finished with this one. Silence is ever speaking. It is the perennial flow of language. And this goes alike with those two. PSS. Postscript. Postscript, I mean. The real is ever present, like the screen on which the cinematographic pictures move. So the real is ever present, like the screen on which the cinematographic pictures move. While the pictures appear on it, the screen remains invisible. Stop the picture, and the screen will become clear. All thoughts and events are merely pictures moving on the screen of pure consciousness, which alone is real. And like Buddha said, if you see yourself in others, then whom can you harm? Concludes today's episode of Words of Wisdom.